Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Friday, January the 10th. Starting with Utah news, rough news for Utah. Dylan Guenther dealing with a lower body injury. He's out indefinitely. We're already halfway through the season. Indefinitely normally means months. We'll see how long he's out, but that's going to make it tougher for them. They have recalled Josh Doan, who had a strong run with Arizona last year, so maybe Doan can recreate some of that magic with Utah this season. Other Utah news: Connor Ingram returns. So there was like quiet. It was very quiet about why he was away from the team, but he's revealed that he was away because his mother had passed away. So he had to deal with that, and now he's back with the team. So my condolences to Connor Ingram, family and friends as well. That's a tough thing to go through, and so we'll see how long it takes before Ingram's back up to speed and ready to return to the lineup. The good news is that, Jackson Stauber looked good while he was out. So you've got Stauber, you've got Vejmelka, you've got Ingram. This is definitely something that's given Utah some options going forward when it comes to their goaltending. And Ingram was off to kind of a rough start on the season. Maybe he was distracted by some of this. We'll see if his play is stronger upon his return. Evander Kane has had knee surgery. I'm kind of surprised they waited this long. I guess maybe they wanted to avoid surgery with this. But it's a 4 to 8 week recovery for Evander Kane. So that would take to late February, early March in that area. And so at the latest, anyways, and we'll see what happens when Kane's good to come back, because there's going to be cap issues for the Oilers when Kane is ready to return to the lineup, right? So we shall see how many more games he misses and how many weeks he actually is out. Ridley Gregg has signed an extension with the Ottawa Senators. 4-year extension. The cap hit $3.25 million. I don't think Gregg has reached his potential yet, which is why he'd sign a 4-year deal rather than getting 8, and that's why the Sens probably wouldn't have been offering him 8 either. But Gregg's a good young forward. The potential's still there, and at $3.25 million, considering the salary cap's going up next summer, $3.25 million should be perfectly fine going forward for Ridley Gregg, and it's one player that Ottawa doesn't have to worry about dealing with this summer when it comes to the contracts. Nick Cousins has been fined for an elbow on Bryson last night in that game against the Buffalo Sabres. Nick Cousins is not out there to make friends, and he makes that clear in every game. There are people who don't like the way that he plays the game. I get it. But yeah, Cousins has been fined. It is the maximum allowable under the collective bargaining agreement, of course. That's why I didn't even bother putting up the amount of money, because it's a small amount, but that's what the collective bargaining agreement allows. So, yeah, a slap on the wrist, absolutely. Interesting news here. Zach Hyman and his family are buying or have bought the Brantford Bulldogs from Michael Andlauer, who, of course, is better known now for being the owner of the Ottawa Senators. So that's kind of interesting. I always find that interesting when hockey players get into ownership of hockey teams, and it always kind of hints at the guys who may end up being in management roles after their careers are done. So, yeah, the Brantford Bulldogs change hands. Of course, they were the Hamilton Bulldogs very recently. And, of course, for Hamilton, their whole hockey history might be an interesting one to look at some point, because Hamilton, you would think a city like that, you'd have a stable NHL or AHL or some kind of franchise there, hockey related, and there's been a lot of instability. So, but yeah, the Brantford Bulldogs, new owners, the Hyman family. Demko, good news for Canuck fans, and they've needed it. Demko is apparently over his back spasms, and so he is expected to start tonight in Carolina, which would mean tomorrow night in Toronto. Lankinen's going to be the starter there. The Vancouver Canucks have had struggles, 2 wins in their last 10 and everything, but at least they get points. Pettersson is also expected to return to the lineup tonight. So, Vancouver getting healthier. Hronek, of course, going through conditioning in Abbotsford while the Canucks are on the road. And once Hronek's called back up, you've got a much healthier Vancouver lineup. It is something the Canucks avoided last year, was the injury bug that's really hit them this year. It is something to keep in mind, is that very often the teams that have really, really strong runs are able to stay healthier than some of the teams that have their struggles. So, again, with Pettersson back in the lineup and with Demko starting, maybe the Canucks come out tonight with a victory against a Carolina team that can be very unpredictable from one game to the next. Or, as we saw last night against Toronto, from one period to the next, they can be very, very unpredictable. Sidney Crosby continues to cement his place as one of the greatest players to ever play the game, as he has passed Joe Sakic for 9th on the all-time points list. He now sits with 1,643. He is 80 points behind 8th place, which is occupied by Mario Lemieux. I also believe that he's 5th all-time in terms of points by a player with one franchise. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not a question of him getting into the Hall of Fame. It's a question of whether or not the Hall of Fame might be like, you know what, we'll just waive the waiting period for Crosby because everybody knows he's getting in. 80 points. I'll go out on a limb and say Crosby gets that and passes Lemieux before his career's done. Sure. And so we'll see where he ends up by the end of it. Considering he's 357 points away from 2,000, he could end up at some point reaching that number. He could. It depends on how much longer he's going to play, but Crosby is still a really very talented forward, one of the best players in the game. And, of course, at Four Nations, there'll be all kinds of talk about this is his last go-around, this is his last go-around. Then he's going to have the Olympics. That'll probably be his last Olympics. What's going to happen? So, yeah. But all the best to Crosby, and honestly, one of the best players I've ever seen play the game. Jordan Staal becomes one of 2 players to ever do this. And I thought this is interesting in that it's very specific. So he is the second National Hockey League player ever to record a hat trick at age 18 or younger, or at age 36 or older. So, and. So he's done both at 18 or younger and at 36 and older. And who's the other player? Of course it's Jaromir Jagr, because of course it is. Guesses you'd get from people might be Gordie Howe. You might get guesses of Wayne Gretzky, although that would be wrong. Towards the end, Gretzky wasn't really a goal scorer. Messier's another one that I think people might guess, but yeah, Jagr would be guessed pretty darn early, and rightfully so. So for Jordan Staal, very productive over the last month. We'll see if he can maintain that. But Staal was one that I had on my second team Canada when I was trying to name like a second team Canada for Four Nations, because Staal's fantastic defensively, but he does have underrated offensive skills as well. He just doesn't play enough really to utilize them. So for the Calgary Flames, I saw one report that there's no MCL or ACL damage with Zari's knee. And then I saw another report saying that he's still being evaluated and they're not confirming the status for Zary at this point. The one thing to keep in mind is here, they've called up Cairns. Now, Cairns is having a very good year with the Wranglers and shows some definite offensive upside in the AHL. So we'll see if that translates to the NHL or not. But yeah, Calgary without Zary, they're going to have to find that offense from elsewhere. It does open things up. Maybe Kuzmenko gets the goal scoring going. He has had opportunities lately, just he's been a little bit snake bit. So maybe the Zary injury is an opportunity for some of the other players to step in and play some bigger minutes and get some goals. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. And if you're even considering flying drones over the fires that are going on in the LA area, do not do that, because when there's drones, they have to ground all of the firefighting planes in the area. So, because one of them got hit this morning and they had to ground it to see if there was any damage. So, don't. As a general rule, if you feel like, hey, I should go out and fly a drone over that area, it's usually probably a bad idea. But anyways, whole other discussion for a whole other time. But thank you guys so much for all your support as always. And if you haven't already hit like and subscribe, please do. I will talk to you again soon.